Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Jake Freevald, VP of Product Marketing with Fulcrum, and I'm delighted to be here today with Jim Grady, our CEO, to discuss setting a new standard. Fulcrum redefines the future of field software. And just to give you a sense of what our agenda looks like today, we're going to do these introductions that we're going through right now. We'll talk a little bit about what the demand is for AI and field work, and really what the field platform is all about. Eventually, Jim is going to walk through a discussion of how the field platform market has really emerged, and he'll go into more detail on that. And then at the end, I'll give you a demo of Fulcrum, which will specifically entail a little bit about our new audio fast fill capability, which is really cool. So stick around for that if you haven't already. Before we switch off the slides and get to a little bit of a conversation with Jim, I just want to set this stage as the problem that Fulcrum is most often solving, and that is that field teams, regardless of what type of field team they are or what industry they're in, they're often struggling with inefficient tools that cause more frustration than help. And that's exemplified by this guy on the right. How many times have we seen somebody who's out in the field, they're using a laptop, which wouldn't be the most efficient way to manage their data. They're talking to somebody on the phone. They're juggling multiple things at once. That's the problem that we most often see, and the reason for Fulcrum to be here. So with that in mind, I'd like to stop showing slides for a minute, and I'd like to come back and let Jim introduce himself briefly, and then we'll start a couple of questions. Jim?
Hi, I'm Jim Grady, and I'm the CEO of Fulcrum, and I'm happy to be here to speak with you today.
Okay, cool. Jim, let's start by talking about Fulcrum and fieldwork just in general. When you first started looking at leading Fulcrum, you've been with Fulcrum for now about 4.5 years, something like that?
5 years, almost
5
today.
years. Awesome. So when you were looking at leading Fulcrum, what were the kinds of things that attracted you to the Fulcrum organization?
Sure. It starts with customers. You know, the Fulcrum customers are field workers, typically building infrastructure. They're building tremendously important infrastructure and assets and maintaining that infrastructure for long asset life cycles, 25 to 50 or 75 years. So these customers are doing really important work, but they don't have tools appropriate for the work they're doing. And so we saw Fulcrum and we said, there's a better way to help these workers accomplish their goals. The digital transformation has been taking place in the back office for over 10 years. And in the office, there's been real progress and real efficiency in driving workflow and process there. But the field was not getting tools to do that. And Fulcrum was a tool that was helping in that area. What we really loved about Fulcrum when we got to know it was really easy to use for the field workers. It had these great geospatial capabilities, which was important to our target customers. Ability to do offline was working beautifully. And all these things together combined to drive efficiency and help the field do their job more effectively. So that was, from the beginning, it was about efficiency in the field.
That's great. And with a few years ago, when Fulcrum was talking about its new, advanced features, what was coming up, one of the things that we saw a lot was the emphasis on geospatial technologies. For example, you just mentioned that geospatial is really important to Fulcrum, line and polygon collection, things like that. And there's been a lot of discussion in our marketing, and as the marketing person, one of the marketing people for Fulcrum, one of the things we've been talking about a lot is field tech. So customers and prospects have been seeing a discussion of field tech, things like sensors being used out in the field, special equipment that people might use in the field, that sort of thing. There's been now, for the past 6 months or so, a strong emphasis on AI. Mm-hmm. And so there are two major questions that come from that, in my opinion. One of them is, is this a de-emphasis on those other capabilities, or is there part of a natural evolution? Like, what's happening with those other capabilities that you've been building into Fulcrum during that time?
Sure, great question. It's definitely not a de-emphasis on any of the things we've been doing. We continue to evolve each of those. The way to think about it is that several years ago, we heard from our customers, hey, we love Fulcrum. It's really easy to use in the field. The field workers love it. They adopt it quickly. But we have some use cases that we're not able to do with Fulcrum because you need to do more on the GIS. So we understood that and went about building out those capabilities. There were two big categories of things. One was just the deep integration with Esri, where customers who have Esri and use Esri as their GIS platform can log directly into Esri from within Fulcrum, can instantly get their data from Esri into Fulcrum, whether that's for online use or offline. And so that was one part of it. And the other part was advanced geometries. This applies to end customers who have both Esri or don't have Esri. They wanted to be able to do lines and polygons within Fulcrum. So we added that functionality, and that functionality will continue to grow in capabilities, but we added most of it. We added the big meaningful chunks a while back, and now it's just ongoing evolution and ongoing feature development in GIS. With field tech, there's just we're always adding more integrations with new field tech, so that's an ongoing process. But the big news around AI really has to do with the fact that the old AI way, that's sort of last year's AI way, was that you had to train models on very specific tasks to have them add value. And this year, with the emergence of these powerful LLMs, what we have now is a lot of AI capabilities with no training at all. So you can immediately use AI in all of your existing Fulcrum apps with no changes and use it for things like audio fast fill, where you can fill, and you're going to have a demo of this later, but you can fill in your form with audio. You don't have to do it in a structured way. You can just speak all the different pieces, and the AI will put the data where it goes in the form. And so this is a tremendous boost to productivity. The same thing that we're here to do. So the main use of Fulcrum is to drive productivity in the field, and this sort of supercharges our main use cases.
Excellent. So it's really all about the productivity that Fulcrum, that when you first were looking at Fulcrum, that's what you were interested in, is that capability, that kind of boost in productivity. I think it's worth mentioning that from my perspective, the audience was really underserved. That market was dramatically underserved. There's a lack of capability out there for people to really do the kind of work that they need to do and get the kind of benefit that they need to get benefit from. So let's talk about how some of these things fit together. Like you've talked about spatial capabilities, you've talked about field tech, you've talked about AI, and all of those things are dedicated to improving productivity in the field. And that means that Fulcrum is about data collection and managing processes and stuff like that in the field. But what does that mean Fulcrum is? Like Fulcrum's got a reason for being. What is it? And I'd like to bring up some slides and ask you to discuss that with us. Let's move forward here, and I'm gonna, Jim, see if I can give you my keyboard and mouse. Looks like you should have control of that in just a moment. But talk through us, what really is Fulcrum and why is it here?
Sure, and I'll give you the answer, and then I'll build back to it. So the answer is Fulcrum is a field process and data collection platform, and this is a new category. There are multiple enterprise scale and grade products, in this category, and that's the category we're in. But let's start with the problem for the customers. The field doesn't see a digital transformation. The digital transformation has been focused on the office and the work there, and there just hasn't been a digital transformation in the field in the same way. The investment has been made in the office, and the benefits have been seen in the office, and there's been some stuff tried in the field, sort of passed out to the field, but the benefits haven't been there yet. So let me see if I can go advance one slide here. There we go. So the kind of office systems on the left here in this slide, we have the office, and on the right, we have the field. On the left, you have these really important office-based systems, things like your asset management, system, which is represented here by IBM Maximo. It's a big player for a lot of our customers. Systems like ERPs, and SAP represents that, and Salesforce here representing things like the CRM or other capabilities in Salesforce. And then Esri, of course, as a GIS system, is an office-based system. Those investments and benefits have paid off in the office, but not in the field. So as you think about the field, what's really happened is the office space group said, hey, I need some data from the field. So they built what we call a bolt-on to the field apps. And these bolt-ons are really about getting the data that the office space group needs. They don't really manage the process in the field. And there's a reason they don't and really can't manage the process in the field. And that is that each separate office-based system has its own bolt-on app. And that app gets some data that one system needs back to that system. And so you end up in the field. I've heard numbers as high as 9 different field apps that are really bolt-ons for office-based systems. They are managed, they're built for and by the office, for the office teams. They're managed by the office team. They're not really easily changed. If the field says, hey, I'd like this to work a little differently, that's not something that happens quickly, is what our customers tell us all the time, if at all. And in some way, the reason they never will be very strong at managing the field process is you can't manage a field process in 5 different apps, which are really just 5 different office-based systems. There have been some attempts, like things like deep linking, where you link between apps, and those things technically work, but they're not. You're still managing one single process that the field cares about in many different systems. And so we hear again and again from our customers that that's a failed approach. So given that failed approach, and given how important the field is to the organizations we're talking about, the next solution that people try is, well, what if we built our own homegrown custom solution? And that involves getting IT to do some development, do integration between the IT and those office systems, and then develop apps out in the for the field. And these homegrown apps are a step forward for the field, but as with any homegrown solution, the benefits are limited and the costs are high. So oops, let me go back one. I think I went too far. The typical costs of a homegrown solution or a custom solution is a very high total cost of ownership. They may start out at a reasonable cost, but they don't build a platform that's meant to be extensible and easily changed. So when you need new capabilities, when AI comes along and you want to incorporate it, that's not something that you can easily do. And so it's very difficult. It's difficult to change. We're still back at that, and the field wants to evolve quickly their process to be efficient, and you can't quickly evolve these solutions because they're not really a platform in the same way. And then the total cost of ownership over the life becomes very high. And so, for example, you wouldn't generally build a homegrown solution if a platform category that meets your needs exists. So I don't know any companies today building a video conferencing solution, because their Zoom exists and Teams exists and Google Meet, these exist. And so people don't build their homegrown video conferencing anymore. Same thing with an ERP system or a CRM. You wouldn't see those built in-house by a company anymore. So, we go next, if I can get the slide to go one more, maybe. Try it again. Oh, no, I go 2. Okay. So enter the field process and data collection platform. And with now that this category of platform exists, what is this about? This is where you design, the field can control the process and manage the process. And these platforms are owned by the field operations group, and they're managed there. And yet they link data, and they have integrations back to the office-based systems, these important systems on the left. They're easy to use in the field. They don't require a lot of training in the field because they're designed for the field. They're low code, so you can evolve your process in the field in literally minutes and hours, which our customers tell us all the time they do that. And they have great data integrity because they're built in a way that has all kinds of checks that the field team can validate the data and know it's right before it connects. So it actually, the people in the office and the office-based systems get a better result than before. Before, sometimes the bolt-ons were left in the truck. Some data was taken down on pen and paper and filled in later. That led to errors. That leads to errors and problems. So, and many other issues with the bolt-ons. So that's where the field platform really shines. It gets better quality of data, and it allows the field to constantly evolve the process to make it a better, more efficient process, more complete process, a safer process. You can quickly add in things that the office systems aren't interested in, but a quick 5-step safety check before the next step in the process. You can add that in at any time, and it has no effect on the data going back to the office, but it changes the process in the field for the better. Same thing with a quality verification check that you could add in. And if you have existing quality or safety systems, you integrate that data back to those systems and get them better quality data than they previously got, because it's part of the main process of managing the field process.
So that opens the question about, what kinds of platforms are you integrating with? It's safety, it's quality, it's asset management, it's a variety of different kinds of systems that you might be interacting with. And as you push forward on the slide here, there's other things that Fulcrum seems to be doing that some of these other platforms may not be. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Sure. I guess on the slide on the lower right hand of the slide, you see the field tech. So there are all kinds of IoT and sensors and even just tools that are used in the field to measure and collect data, which can integrate with the field the field process and data collection platforms and get that data back to where it needs to get to. Is that where you're going with that, Jake, or there's something else I should add?
That's exactly right. You've called this a field a process and data collection platform. So data collection is pretty easy to understand, right? Data collection is, I'm going to go out, I'm going to do an inspection. An inspection is inherently a data collection task. I'm going to get some information here. In what way is it process management? Can you talk a little bit about field process management, the kind of use cases you might be talking about there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the process is everything that's done in the field. So, maybe the first step, you get on site, and the first thing you want to do is you want to make sure you have information about how to access a property or a location, or what's the right way to get there. That kind of information is important. Maybe you start out with some safety checks. Has everyone got a hard hat on and their steel-toed boots? Then the process begins of doing the work that you have to do, whether it's a survey, an inspection, a maintenance step, and then you assess what's going on. You collect the data. If you have a remediation that you're doing right then and there, you retest and show the results. Maybe you take a picture, and that whole process to get from beginning to exiting the site. Maybe the last step is make sure we closed up the cabinet that we worked in and validate that we did every step, that we didn't ever leave something incomplete. And everything can be validated through that process, whether you take a picture to validate something or take some video with audio and finish out your process and then maybe a quality check at the end. So everything that you do in the field is there, and the data gets back to all those office systems that need to know the different aspects of what's happening in the field.
So it's like a system of record for the field. It's a field first platform. Are we the only ones talking about this? How have you validated this with the industry to make sure that we're not just doing something unique?
Yeah, well, we're starting to see validation coming from the industry analysts. Lynn Schneider at IDC recently gave this quote where she talks about, and I'll read it and add my comments here. For CIOs and digital transformation leaders, people looking to really drive big efficiency in the field, to streamline field operations, the category of field process and data collection platforms offers transformative alternatives to the outdated methods, and I think outdated, she's referring to bolt-ons or building custom homegrown solutions. And they're critical for driving efficiency, flexibility, and ensuring data accuracy across field operations. So, this is an endorsement of the category, and that companies that have field teams, should look at this category.
Great. And I want to interrupt the flow just for a second and let everybody know that we are interested in having your questions. So there is a questions area that you can enter in. Anything you want to ask Jim or me here at the webinar today, please feel free to do that. As those questions come in, I will, ask Jim as we're going along, or we'll, if there's some that we can answer at the end, we'll do that too. But feel free to chime in with those questions at any point you want to. Jim, there's a story that you were talking to me about, which I thought was really interesting, and it's summarized in this customer quote.
This quote was typical of, we learn everything important from our customers, and we talk to our customers a lot. This quote came from a senior person at a major investor-owned utility who is actually responsible for the implementation of Maximo there as an asset management tool, which is a very important system. And this person said that Fulcrum saved my Maximo implementation because it allowed more flexibility and more capability in the field. And so when Fulcrum's involved with something like that, we, again, don't just help the Maximo, we help all the field process and the field data collection that's done. But in this case, it was the Maximo, that person that quoted us and saw the benefits for their solution. And that's an office-based system, obviously.
But it's an office-based system that relies heavily on field data, and that's where we really stepped in.
Yeah.
I think there may be one more comment here from a company that's been doing some fast fill, working with us on our fast fill capability. The audio fast fill is in production for certain customers right now. We're working on the photo fast fill, but we're talking about saving even just the audio side of audio fast fill will save us 20 minutes per poll. That's a big number, and one of the things that we thought we would do is show a demonstration of audio fast fill and Fulcrum in general, so that we can give you a sense of where we're coming from. Like we've talked about productivity for the field, we've talked about a platform for the field where we're collecting a lot of field data. So what I'd like to do next, if I can make it work, I just saw things popping up on my screen, so I'm not sure, but what we'd like to do next, yeah, the operation could not be completed. Hang on a second. Is give you a demo of fast fill. So hang on one second while I try to bring this back up again. Nope.
While you do that, Jake, I'll tell a story of a customer that you'll appreciate, which is they said they already had audio fast fill. It's called a second person who reads things off and another person that types things in. So,
right.
The new part is we save one of the two people you need to do something.
All right. Well, this is how you know it's live, people, because there we go. Hang on. Just thinking about it. Okay. One more time. I'm going to disconnect and reconnect my cables. So what I'm trying to show you, if I'm able to get there, is that Fulcrum is a mobile app, obviously, because it's set for the field. And we've been focused on a variety of geospatial technologies and other capabilities that are necessary for people in the field to be as efficient as possible. And our application of AI is unique in the sense that we are not using AI in some kind of generic sense, and I'm not going to do it.
Do you have the video that we could just play of maybe it being used?
I could. That may be the way to go.
Instead of the live demo?
Instead of the live demo. Sorry, people. But let me bring that up because I think it's important to see this stuff in action. Hang on one second. the focus of AI for us is really all about making sure that the person in the field does not have to know more than they need to about the technology. So, for example, if your job is to be if your job is to inspect transformers on a pole, then you shouldn't have to know a whole lot about things that are not transformers, right? You shouldn't have to do a lot of training to engage in collecting the data necessary to do those pole inspections. So in order to continue to make that as easy for people as possible, we've created audio fast fill, and I will roll the demo, and let's see if it is not a permissions error. Let's see if we can, I'll just walk through it. I don't think you're going to get good audio here, so I'll talk through it myself. What you're going to see is, first of all, that I've already put in, you'll notice that there's a swale area there that was going to be part of my demo already. So just go in and collect the area of a swale. A swale is like a a drainage area, and by collecting it geometrically on the map, I was able to automatically calculate the area of it. For example, one of the things that you'll see here as I'm talking through it is that the contents section, there's nothing between the context section and the standing water present section. Those two fields don't have anything between them. But if you click on the contents area and say vegetation is the type of content, let's see if I catch up to myself here. Vegetation is the type of content. Then it opens up a new field that says type of vegetation, which gives you the chance to give a little bit more detail. So I'm going to clear that out and come back to a blank slate so I can just start giving the information that I need to by talking. And I even know the script here well enough that I'll tell you, like, I'll walk through what the script is. You'll notice that there's a fast fill button in the lower middle, and when I click on that, the microphone comes up. Did I just lose? There we go. And I'm able to scroll through and talk through what I want Fulcrum to capture. So I click on the microphone and I say something like, the depth of the swale is about 3 feet. The contents is vegetation, including mostly shrubs and small trees. There is, I forget whether I did water standing water present or not. The impervious surface area is, say, 1/2 acre. The pervious surface area is 3/4 of an acre. By the way, note on the drainage, there's Japanese knotweed in this area that we might want to hit with a targeted herbicide. And in the comments, there's a dog that's pretty vicious, so stand by, use caution in this area. Something like that is what I said. So when what we do is we use an LLM to interpret that information and plug it into the right places. Do you see that the depth in meters is captured, the 2 meters that I said before? Not only was able to say vegetation, but it was able to expose that second layer of detail and say shrubs and small trees. It converted my fractions, 1/2 and 2/3, to 0.5 and 2/3 in decimal. And there's other calculations here, like the total drainage and the total capacity of the swale. Those are just calculations. There's nothing AI about that. Those are just calculations that Fulcrum can use on an everyday basis to make the lives of the people who are out there better and ensure that they're as efficient as humanly possible. One of the ways to do that, of course, is to not make them do a lot of standard conversions and things of that sort. The notes on the drainage and the notes about the vicious dog were put into the appropriate areas, and that's essentially the end of the demo. The Fulcrum has captured all of the information that it needed to capture. Instead of doing something that you would expect to see one at a time, where you would expect to see, you could enter use speech to text on an individual field. Instead, you're able to have entire forms or sections of forms filled out, just like Jim said, where you might think that there's a scribe or something. Instead, you don't need a scribe. You've just got Fulcrum there capturing the information for you.
You could do that in any order. You could have provided that information in any order you wanted, and it would end up in the right place in the form.
That's right. And it's a little magical too. I mean, like as a product guy working on software, when we were beta testing this, we would just add fields to a form and it would just magically work. Like Fulcrum and the AI together would figure out exactly what that new field was, and there wouldn't be any additional work, no additional training of models, no additional work on the admin side to make that field then accessible via voice to the person who's out in the field. So really just the phenomenal application of AI that can work in any Fulcrum app you use, any use case, anytime anybody's collecting data at all, which means always. They're able to, instead of taking off their gloves and doing a lot of additional typing with 2 thumbs and stuff like that, they're just able to say what's going on, and Fulcrum's able to capture the information. So sorry, I wasn't able to do the demo live. It was working before I got on, of course, but it is what it is. We can share that that video that I showed on the screen with you, so you can see what it looks like with my narrative live. But that's the basic idea, regardless. So that's AI in action in a very pragmatic kind of way that you won't see from any other field-oriented platform. We are the first and only, to my knowledge, doing anything like that with AI. Jim, do you have any other comments you want to add before we get to questions?
I would just add that, that's our very first use case for AI. The next one is the audio fast fill, where you can take a picture of let's say a label on a piece of machinery, and all the different brands of machinery don't have a standardized label, but the AI can put the right information in the right field, regardless of what brand or how that label works.
And if you're interested in seeing this kind of technology in action, you just want to understand Fulcrum's productivity capabilities in general, how we streamline processes, I welcome you to set up a personalized demo. Reach out to us and we'll be happy to show you something that looks kind of like your use case and really hits the wickets you need to hit to make your teams more productive. We do have a couple of questions coming in. Please do continue to provide those questions to us. Hang on one second here, sorry. Jim, you're gonna laugh about this one because we talked about it all the time. Have you considered applying AI to the application building process?
Yes, we have, and we've looked at that. It just turns out that there's 1 or 2 people building applications in Fulcrum, and there's 1,000 people working in the field. So we're trying to make the efficiency for the 1,000 people in the field versus the 1 or 2 people who don't even spend full time building apps. For Fulcrum, app building is not a big part of the process. Even our typical customer might have 100 apps. They might change them all the time. Someone in the field calls in and says, hey, it would work better if you could do it this way and add a step here and do this. And that takes minutes. And it's not like someone spends, and then they say, well, I just updated, refresh your app and it works. So there's not a lot of effort going into building apps, I guess.
I think that's one of the things that's really important about being field first in that way, right? When we talk about the features that we create, yes, we absolutely want to make sure that it's easy for admins in the back office to be able to permission people or onboard people or offboard people. Like, we need to have all of those kinds of capabilities. But our first question is, how do we make things better for that person standing in the field? And the answer is not by adding AI to the application building process. It's by making that person in the field so much more productive using, like you said, photos or audio or whatever it may be that we do.
Yeah.
Somebody says, I've been to your website and it looks like you're mostly in utilities and environmental organizations. I'm in a property management company, and do you support that kind of use case?
Yeah, we have a number of large property management companies. I don't remember off the top of my head whether a couple of the biggest companies have authorized us to use their name and if they're on our website. But yeah, our targets are, we start with water and environmental, utilities, electric and gas and pipelines. But we do a lot of property management as a use case. We see quite a bit.
Yeah. We've got somebody who knows you a little too well, Jim. Does Jim think the 49ers have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl this year? Apparently they see the hat behind you, maybe.
Yeah,
So,
I think it would require miraculous recovery of the unbelievable amount of talent we have not playing every game this year. So, I mean, I think we need the offensive player of the year last year to play, which is Christian McCaffrey, and we need the defensive player of the year before to play, Nick Bosa. That's just the beginning of the people coming back from injury. It's going to be a tough year for the Niners.
A rough year. We're a virtual company, so I'm sitting in New York while Jim's out there in California, and I'm not worried about the 49ers. Sorry, Jim. Another, perhaps a more on point question comes from someone that's asking, with the adoption of lines and polygons, are you trying to compete with Esri? And I just like to point out that I've got a Esri water bottle there because we're working so closely with Esri all the time. I got that from my trip out to California earlier in the year. Jim, this is something that people ask us occasionally, but do you want to drill down on our relationship?
Yeah, I mean, we're an Esri Silver partner. We have, we don't. Esri is a very, very strong GIS. So they're a dominant player in their industry. We don't compete with Esri. I think the way Esri thinks about us and why they were eager to partner with us as we were with them is that together we make a better solution for our joint customers. About half of our customers by revenue use Esri. The others don't, but they are, as they get more and more into mapping and location, they may need to do GIS, and it's natural that they move forward with Esri at that point. But no, we don't compete with Esri. We get data that's stored in Esri, like map layers, into Fulcrum. We can send data back into Esri, but there's no competition between Fulcrum and Esri.
I don't know if you want to take this question or you want me to, but it says, do we want to place Fulcrum in the context of specific field service management and other kinds of ecosystems? Do you want to take that, or do you want me to? How do you want to do that?
Sure, I could. So, field service management tools often are a lot about scheduling and routing to the location. But when you get to the location and there's a process to be run, it might be 10 steps, it might be 500-step process, installing something that's a complicated installation or maintenance project, or a complicated survey or inspection. That's typically not part of what field service management tools do, and that's what Fulcrum does. Sometimes we get a handoff from a field service management that schedules and routes, and then when you get to the location, Fulcrum manages the process at the location.
I think one of the ways I like to think about it as I'm talking to clients or new prospects is the fact that the people who are using the field service management application are usually those in the office managing the teams who are out in the field. And with Fulcrum being really the field platform, it needs to integrate with field service management capabilities. It needs to be able to handle tasking and things like that from them, but we're all about the detail of what's happening in the field. So just like we would integrate with Maximo from an EAM perspective, enterprise asset management, or just like we would integrate with Esri because they have a lot of GIS data requirements, we would integrate with your field service management platform in order to do that. And actually, Jim, going back to something you were talking about earlier, safety is very often a requirement too. So if I'm going to be working out in the field, I'm being sent out in the field to do an inspection of an asset, then you think about the number of systems involved here. You've got the GIS that says where that asset's located. You've got the EAM that contains the details of what that asset is. You've got a safety management system that's designed to capture all of the information about the safety steps that you took. And then you may have some other system that captures additional details about the process that you're engaged in, the field service management, which truck is going out to whom, all that kind of stuff. All of those things have to be, they're not something that the person out in the field wants to use. That's 4 or 5 bolt-on apps. And instead of having the person in the field deal with a process that engages with 4 or 5 bolt-on apps, now you've got one process, one app, and then we just integrate the data back in all those systems.
Yeah, and most of those apps would have no real process. They would be, get me these 3 pieces of data. They wouldn't say in what order. They wouldn't have much process to them. And so if you want to manage that as a process in the field and get all of the data back to all of the systems, that's where a field process and data collection platform like Fulcrum fits in.
Right. It's not just about collecting the data. It's about making sure the safety check happens before the inspection happens, that kind of thing. That whole process
Yeah,
aspect
we
of
talked
this.
about this, Jake. You and I talked about this earlier. Like safety really needs to be integrated into your everyday, into your
Right.
process, not as a separate thing. So
If
you may need
safety
to
itself.
collect specific data for safety and do specific analysis and validation in an office-based system, but the doing it should be part of the process, which can be managed in Fulcrum.
Super. So it looks like we've exhausted the questions that are coming from the audience so far. So we appreciate the amount of time that you've spent with us today. If you do have any more questions, we'll be here for another 30 seconds or so waiting for that last taker. But Jim, thanks very much for leading the charge on the discussion today. Thank you very much in the audience. We know you had other things you could be doing and you spent that time with us, and we really appreciate it very much. Thanks to all the people behind the scenes who are doing the work on there. Jim, any closing comments?
No, just thank you all for attending today, and let us know if we can help you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Be sure to go to fulcrumapp.com, sign up for a customized demo, talk to us about what your specific use cases are. We look forward to talking to you then. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.